What happens when a calm, thoughtful Hollywood actor walks onto a daytime talk show, and within minutes finds himself in a tense back and forth with one of television's most outspoken hosts? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras are already rolling as the audience settles into their seats, the familiar theme music fades, and the hosts take their places at the table. There's a light buzz in the studio, the kind that usually means the audience is excited about the guest lineup. Whoopi Goldberg glances down at her notes while Joy Behar leans back slightly in her chair with that familiar half-smile. Sunny Hostin and Alyssa Farah Griffin exchange a quick word off mic as the producers count down. Whoopi looks up toward the audience and smiles. "Well, we've got a great guest today," she says. "You know him from some huge movies, some incredible performances. Please welcome Oscar Isaac." The audience bursts into applause as Oscar Isaac walks onto the stage, smiling and waving. He shakes Whoopi's hand, gives Sunny and Alyssa quick greetings, and when he reaches Joy, she gives him a playful look. "Well, hello there," Joy says, raising an eyebrow. "You're very popular around here." Oscar laughs lightly. "I appreciate that. Thanks for having me." He takes his seat, adjusting slightly as the applause fades. For a moment, everything feels exactly like a normal segment on the show. Whoopi begins. "So, Oscar, you've had an incredible run these past few years. Movies, television, producing now. How are you keeping up with everything?" Oscar shrugs modestly. "I'm just trying to keep working with good people and tell good stories. That's really the goal." Sunny nods approvingly. "And you've been very vocal about choosing projects that actually mean something," she adds. "Not just entertainment, but stories with depth." Oscar smiles. "Yeah, I think audiences appreciate that more now. People want something real." Joy leans forward slightly. "Well, sometimes people just want to be entertained," she says, her tone light but pointed. "Not everything has to carry a message." A few audience members chuckle. Oscar nods politely. "Sure, absolutely. Entertainment is important too." Joy taps the table. "But I notice a lot of actors these days feel like they need to lecture the audience," she continues. "You know, politics, culture, what people should believe." The audience murmurs a little. Oscar keeps a calm expression. "I don't see it as lecturing," he says. "I see it as participating in conversations people are already having." Joy tilts her head. "But you're actors," she says. "People didn't elect you to speak for them." There's a ripple of reaction from the crowd. Whoopi glances sideways, sensing the tone shifting. "Well," but Oscar answers first. "I don't think anyone's trying to speak for people," he says evenly. "But everyone has a voice." Joy quickly jumps in. "Yes, but there's a difference between having a voice and assuming everyone wants to hear it." The audience gives a mixed reaction. Some laughs, some claps. Sunny raises her hand slightly. "Joy, I think what he's saying is..." Joy turns toward her, but keeps speaking. No, I understand what he's saying. I've just been watching this trend where actors suddenly become political experts." Oscar chuckles softly. "I definitely wouldn't call myself an expert." "Well, that's refreshing," Joy replies quickly. The audience laughs again. Oscar smiles, but there's a hint of tension now. "I just believe that if you have a platform, you should use it responsibly." Joy leans back in her chair. "Responsibly according to who?" There's a brief pause. Oscar answers carefully. "According to your own values." Joy shakes her head. "See, that's the problem right there," she says. "Everybody thinks their values should be broadcast to millions of people." The audience murmurs again. Whoopi interjects gently. "Well, people have always used their platforms. Writers, musicians, actors. That's not exactly new." Joy shrugs. "Sure, but now it feels like every interview turns into a speech." Oscar looks toward Whoopi for a moment, then back at Joy. "I think sometimes audiences appreciate honesty." Joy immediately responds. "They appreciate honesty, yes. But they also appreciate not being told how to think." A few people clap. Oscar nods slowly. "I agree with that. But expressing an opinion isn't the same as telling someone what to think." Joy smiles slightly, almost like she's enjoying the debate. "You say that, but the tone sometimes comes off differently." Sunny jumps in again. "I think we're also in a time where people expect public figures to be transparent about what they believe." Joy gestures toward Oscar. "But then when someone disagrees with them, suddenly it's outrage." Oscar tilts his head slightly. "Disagreement is fine," he says. "I actually think disagreement is healthy." The audience claps softly. Joy raises her hands. "Well, that's good to hear." Whoopi chuckles. "I feel like we just opened a door here." The audience laughs. Alyssa leans forward. Let me ask something, she says. Oscar, do you feel pressure as an actor now to speak out on issues? Oscar thinks for a moment. Sometimes, he admits. But it's more internal pressure than anything else. You ask yourself what matters to you. Joy immediately responds. And that's fine privately, she says. But the moment you say it publicly, half the audience feels like you're attacking them. Oscar gives a small smile. That might happen no matter what you say. The audience laughs. Joy points toward him. Exactly. So why say it? Oscar pauses for a second, then answers calmly. Because silence also says something. There's a louder reaction from the crowd now. Joy raises her eyebrows. Oh, that's a line. More laughter. But the tension is becoming noticeable. Whoopi leans forward slightly, watching the exchange carefully. Joy continues. Let me ask you something directly, she says. Do you think actors have more influence than politicians now? Oscar laughs softly. No, definitely not. Joy doesn't look convinced. Really? Yes, he says firmly. Politicians make laws. Actors make movies. Sunny nods. That's a pretty clear distinction. Joy crosses her arms. Maybe. But culturally, actors move people emotionally. Sometimes that's even more powerful. Oscar shrugs slightly. Storytelling has always influenced people. Joy quickly responds. And that's exactly why some people feel uncomfortable when actors mix storytelling with politics. The audience murmurs again. Oscar's expression grows a little more serious. I think audiences are smarter than we give them credit for, he says. Joy leans forward. Oh, I completely agree with that. But that also means they can decide for themselves whether they agree with what someone says. Joy pauses. Well, that's true. There's a short silence around the table. Then Joy adds with a smirk. But don't be surprised if they push back. The audience laughs again. Oscar smiles politely. I wouldn't expect anything less. Whoopi chuckles. Well, all right, we're warming up already. The audience claps. But the tone at the table has clearly shifted. What started as a casual conversation about Oscar Isaac's career has turned into something a little more intense, a little more personal. Joy glances toward him again. You're very calm about this, she says. Oscar grins slightly. I try to be. Joy laughs. Give it time. The audience bursts into laughter again as Whoopi shakes her head. Oh boy, she says. I feel like this conversation is just getting started. The audience is still laughing when the conversation settles again, but the energy at the table has clearly shifted. What started as a friendly celebrity interview now feels like something a little sharper. The cameras capture Oscar Isaac sitting calmly, hands folded loosely on the table, while Joy Behar leans slightly forward, clearly interested in continuing the discussion. Whoopi glances between them with a half smile. Well, she says lightly, this is why people like live television. The audience chuckles. Joy turns back toward Oscar. Let me ask you something honestly, she says, because you seem like a thoughtful guy. When actors speak about social issues, do you ever worry that people feel talked down to? Oscar takes a second before answering. I think that depends on how the conversation happens, he says calmly. If someone is talking at people, then yeah, that can feel uncomfortable. But if someone is sharing their perspective, that's different. Joy nods slowly, but she doesn't look convinced. See, I'm not sure audiences always hear the difference. Sunny leans in slightly. I think audiences are pretty capable of deciding that for themselves, she says. Joy gestures toward Sunny. Sure, but we also live in a time where people feel very strongly about everything. The audience murmurs in agreement. Oscar nods. That's true. Joy continues. And when a celebrity says something political, suddenly it becomes a headline, and half the country is angry. Oscar smiles slightly. That might say more about the media cycle than the person speaking. A few people in the audience clap. Joy raises her eyebrows. Oh, you're blaming us now? Oscar laughs. No, not you. I mean the larger media environment. Whoopi chuckles. He's trying to stay diplomatic. The audience laughs. Joy taps the table with her finger. But here's the thing, she says. You're a talented actor. People love your movies. But when actors start talking politics, some viewers feel like they're being scolded. Oscar keeps his tone even. I never want anyone to feel scolded. Joy quickly jumps in. But intention doesn't always matter. Impact does. The audience reacts with a few claps. Oscar nods thoughtfully. That's fair. Sunny glances toward Joy. But Joy, we also invite politicians, activists, journalists. Everyone talks about their beliefs here. Joy shrugs. Yes, but their job is politics. Oscar gently responds. And my job involves storytelling. Stories reflect the world we live in. The audience gives another soft round of applause. Joy leans back in her chair, studying him for a moment. You're very good at this, she says with a smirk. Oscar laughs quietly. At what? At answering questions without stepping into the trap. The audience laughs again. Oscar smiles. I'm not trying to avoid anything. Joy tilts her head. Well, let's see. The audience reacts with an amused, oh. Whoopi immediately chuckles. Joy woke up ready today. Joy turns back to Oscar. All right, she says. Let's talk about something specific. When celebrities comment on controversial issues, do you think they actually change minds? Oscar thinks for a moment. Sometimes, he says. But I think the bigger impact is starting conversations. Joy shakes her head slightly. Or starting arguments. Oscar smiles. Sometimes those are the same thing. The audience laughs. Alyssa joins in. I think what he's saying is that cultural conversations happen everywhere now. Social media, interviews, podcasts, it's not like actors are the only ones talking. Joy nods slowly. That's true, but actors have huge audiences. Oscar responds calmly. So do talk show hosts. The audience erupts with laughter and applause. Joy points at him immediately. Ah, see, there it is. Oscar laughs too. You asked. Whoopi claps the table once. That was a good one. Even Joy smiles for a moment before shaking her head. All right, fair enough. The room relaxes slightly, but the tension hasn't completely disappeared. Joy leans forward again. But here's where I'm curious, she continues. You said silence also says something earlier. Oscar nods. Yes. Joy folds her arms. So do you think celebrities have a responsibility to speak up? Oscar answers carefully. I think everyone has a responsibility to think about the world around them. Joy presses further. But that's not the same thing. Oscar remains calm. No, it's not. Joy gestures toward him again. So if an actor decides not to talk about politics, is that wrong? Oscar shakes his head. No. Everyone chooses how they engage. Joy raises an eyebrow. But earlier you said silence says something. Oscar nods again. It does. But that doesn't mean it's automatically bad. Sunny smiles slightly. That's actually a pretty balanced answer. Joy looks at Sunny. He's good, isn't he? The audience laughs again. Oscar shrugs. I'm just trying to be honest. Joy studies him for a moment, then says, You know what's interesting? You're very calm right now. But the internet would already be fighting about this conversation. The audience laughs knowingly. Oscar smiles. That's probably true. Joy continues. Because the moment someone clips one sentence out of context, suddenly it's actor blasts host, or host destroys actor. The crowd reacts with amused applause. Whoopi nods. That's the world we live in now. Joy turns back toward Oscar. And that's why I sometimes think celebrities should just stick to acting. The room quiets slightly. Oscar responds, still measured. I understand that perspective. Joy nods. But, Oscar smiles lightly. But I also think artists have always participated in cultural conversations. Joy immediately answers. Yes, but today those conversations become political very quickly. Oscar replies. Sometimes that's unavoidable. Joy raises her hands slightly. Or sometimes it's intentional. The audience murmurs again. Sunny glances toward Whoopi, sensing the tension returning. Oscar tilts his head slightly. Intentional how? Joy looks directly at him. Because controversy gets attention. A few people clap. Oscar stays composed. I think most actors would prefer attention for their work. Joy smirks. Oh, come on. Oscar laughs softly. I'm serious. Joy leans closer to the table. You're telling me nobody in Hollywood enjoys stirring the pot? The audience bursts into laughter. Oscar shakes his head. I didn't say nobody. More laughter. Joy nods. Okay, we're getting somewhere. The crowd claps again. But then Joy adds something that shifts the mood again. You just seem a little idealistic about all this. Oscar's smile fades just slightly. Maybe, he says. Joy continues. You think conversations are always productive. Oscar responds calmly. I think they can be. Joy shakes her head. Sometimes they just divide people more. The audience grows quieter now. Oscar pauses before answering. That depends on whether people are actually listening. Joy leans forward again. And you think people listen? Oscar meets her gaze. Sometimes. The audience reacts softly. Joy tilts her head. Because from where I'm sitting, she says slowly. It often looks like celebrities speak, and regular people feel ignored. The room grows noticeably quieter. Oscar doesn't respond immediately this time. Whoopi watches both of them closely. Joy adds one more line, her tone a little sharper now. And that's why some viewers get frustrated when actors start telling the world how things should be. The audience murmurs again. Oscar finally answers, his voice still calm but slightly firmer now. I don't think sharing an opinion means you're claiming authority. Joy responds immediately. But that's how it comes across sometimes. Oscar nods slowly. And that's something people should be careful about. Joy studies him for a moment. Then she smiles faintly. Well, at least you admit that. The tension at the table lingers. The audience can feel the debate slowly building into something deeper. Whoopi exhales and leans back. I'm telling you right now, she says with a grin. This conversation is going to keep going. The studio audience is quieter now than it was earlier in the segment. The laughter that filled the room a few minutes ago has settled into a kind of attentive silence. Everyone can feel the shift. What began as a casual conversation about actors and public voices has slowly turned into a genuine debate, and the energy at the table reflects that. Whoopi looks down the row of hosts and then back toward Oscar Isaac. Well, she says with a small smile, this got deeper than I expected. A few people in the audience laugh softly. Joy Behar glances toward the crowd and then back at Oscar. Hey, this is what the show is about, she says. We talk. Oscar nods politely. And I appreciate that. Sunny Hostin leans forward slightly. I think the interesting thing here, she says, is that we're really talking about influence. Who has it, how it's used, and how people react to it. Joy points toward Sunny. Exactly. Then she turns back toward Oscar again. And you're saying actors should use their voices if they want to. Oscar answers calmly. I'm saying everyone has the right to. Joy tilts her head. But rights and responsibilities aren't the same thing. The audience murmurs in agreement. Oscar folds his hands on the table. That's true. Joy continues. So let's talk about responsibility. The room grows a little quieter. Joy gestures toward him. You've got millions of fans. People listen to you. Some people look up to you. Oscar nods. I'm aware of that. Joy leans in. So doesn't that make you more careful about what you say? Oscar answers without hesitation. Yes. Joy raises her eyebrows slightly. But careful doesn't always mean accurate. A few audience members react with a soft, oh. Oscar smiles lightly. That applies to everyone. The audience laughs. Joy gives a small smile too, but she doesn't back down. Sure, but most people don't have cameras pointed at them. Oscar nods again. That's true. Alyssa Farah Griffin jumps in. I actually want to ask something from a different angle, she says. Oscar, when you speak about issues publicly, do you feel like people expect you to represent an entire group? Oscar thinks about it for a moment. Sometimes, yeah, he says. And that's a lot of pressure. Sunny nods. I can imagine. Oscar continues. Because no one person represents everyone. But that expectation still exists. Joy gestures toward him. But that's exactly my point. The audience turns their attention back to her. You say something, Joy continues, and suddenly people treat it like it's a statement from Hollywood. Oscar chuckles softly. I definitely don't speak for Hollywood. The audience laughs. Joy shrugs. Maybe not intentionally, but perception matters. Oscar leans slightly forward. I agree with that. Joy crosses her arms loosely. So when actors talk about politics or social issues, some viewers feel like they're being judged. Oscar pauses before responding. I think sometimes people assume judgment when none is intended. Joy quickly replies. But sometimes it is intended. The audience reacts again with a few claps. Oscar nods. That's possible too. Whoopi raises her hand slightly. Let me jump in here for a second, she says. The audience quiets. I've been in entertainment for a long time, Whoopi continues. And artists have always spoken about the world around them. Joy nods. Yes, but the environment is different now. Whoopi looks at her. How? Joy answers immediately. Social media. The audience reacts with knowing laughter. Joy continues. 30 years ago, an actor might say something in an interview, and it would disappear the next day. Now it becomes a viral clip in 5 minutes. Oscar nods. That's definitely true. Joy leans back slightly. And that changes the stakes. Oscar responds calmly. It also changes how conversations happen. Sunny adds quietly. And how quickly people react. Joy points toward Sunny. Exactly. Then she looks back at Oscar again. But here's where I think we disagree a little. Oscar tilts his head. Okay. Joy speaks slowly now, choosing her words. You seem to believe that public conversations help people understand each other. Oscar nods. I do. Joy shakes her head. I think they often do the opposite. The room grows still again. Oscar asks calmly, why do you think that? Joy answers, because most people aren't listening to understand. They're listening to respond. A few audience members clap. Oscar considers that. That's a fair point. Joy continues. And when celebrities enter those conversations, it can feel like they're stepping into issues they don't fully understand. Oscar responds carefully. That depends on the person. Joy smiles slightly. But viewers don't always see that nuance. Oscar nods. That's true too. There's a brief pause. Then Joy asks a more direct question. Have you ever said something publicly and later thought, maybe I shouldn't have said that? The audience leans in. Oscar laughs quietly. Of course. The crowd laughs with him. Joy smiles. Good. Because sometimes celebrities act like they've never been wrong. Oscar shakes his head. No one is right all the time. Joy nods. I'm glad you said that. Sunny jumps in again. But that's also part of public conversation. People learn, they adjust, they rethink things. Joy shrugs. Sometimes. Oscar looks toward Sunny. I actually think that's an important part of it. Joy glances back at him. You're very optimistic. Oscar smiles slightly. I try to be. Joy laughs. You're in Hollywood. Optimism is part of the job. The audience laughs again. But then Joy adds something that shifts the tone once more. But optimism doesn't always match reality. Oscar looks at her. What do you mean? Joy speaks more firmly now. I mean that sometimes people feel like celebrities talk about everyday problems without really understanding them. The audience murmurs again. Oscar answers slowly. I think that criticism can be valid. Joy raises her eyebrows. Oh, Oscar nods. Actors live very different lives from most people. The audience reacts with quiet agreement. Joy gestures toward him. So when someone in that position starts telling the public how society should work, some viewers get frustrated. Oscar keeps his voice steady. I understand that frustration. Joy pauses. But, Oscar continues. But I also think people can still care about issues even if their lives are different. Sunny nods immediately. That's an important point. Joy shrugs. Sure. Caring is one thing. Speaking for people is another. Oscar answers. I don't think anyone should claim to speak for everyone. Joy looks at him carefully. Then what's the goal? Oscar pauses. To share perspective. Joy tilts her head again. But perspective from a position of privilege can feel disconnected. The room grows quieter. Oscar doesn't react immediately. Whoopi watches both of them carefully. Joy continues. That's why some viewers roll their eyes when actors start talking about how the world should change. The audience murmurs again. Oscar finally answers, still calm but noticeably firmer. I'm not trying to tell anyone how the world should change. Joy looks straight at him. But you do talk about change. Oscar nods. Yes. Joy spreads her hands slightly. And that's political. Oscar responds. Most discussions about society eventually become political. Joy nods. Exactly. Oscar finishes his thought. But that doesn't mean people should avoid them. Joy leans forward again. And that's where we disagree. The tension around the table is obvious now. The audience senses it too. Joy speaks slowly. I think sometimes the loudest voices drown out the people actually living those struggles. The room is silent for a moment. Oscar meets her gaze. And I think silence can allow problems to continue. A few audience members clap. Joy raises an eyebrow. Well, she says, that's a strong statement. Oscar remains calm. It's just how I see it. Joy nods slowly. I figured. There's another pause at the table. Whoopi exhales and shakes her head slightly. Okay, she says. This might be one of the most serious guest conversations we've had in a while. The audience laughs softly, breaking the tension for a moment. But the debate between Oscar Isaac and Joy Behar clearly isn't finished yet. The audience laughter fades, but the energy in the studio still feels different from when the segment started. What began as a routine celebrity interview has turned into one of those moments that live television sometimes produces, when a conversation goes somewhere unexpected and everyone in the room knows it. Whoopi Goldberg leans back in her chair slightly, glancing between Joy Behar and Oscar Isaac. Well, she says with a small smile, This is why we don't script these conversations. The audience chuckles. Joy lifts her hand slightly. Hey, nobody's mad here, she says. We're just talking. Oscar nods calmly. That's right. Sunny Hostin smiles toward the audience. And I think people appreciate when guests actually engage with us instead of giving the usual press tour answers. The audience claps in agreement. Joy looks at Oscar again. And you definitely didn't give us the usual answers. Oscar laughs quietly. I guess not. The mood around the table softens just a little, but the tension from the debate still lingers in the air. The audience can feel it. Everyone is curious about where the conversation goes next. Joy folds her hands on the table. You know, she says, I actually respect the fact that you stayed calm during this. The audience murmurs approvingly. Oscar smiles slightly. Well, I think conversations work better when people stay calm. Joy points toward him. See, that's something we can agree on. A few audience members laugh. Whoopi nods. That's progress. The room relaxes for a moment. But Joy continues. Let me say one thing before we wrap this up. Oscar looks toward her. Sure. Joy speaks in a more reflective tone now. I've been doing this show for a long time, and I've seen a lot of guests come through here. Some people get very defensive when they're challenged. The audience nods and murmurs. Joy gestures toward Oscar. But you didn't. Oscar shrugs lightly. I don't think disagreement has to be hostile. Sunny smiles. That's a refreshing approach these days. Joy nods slowly. It is. But then she adds one more thought. However, she says, raising a finger slightly, I still think celebrities sometimes underestimate how their words land with regular people. The audience reacts with quiet agreement. Oscar nods respectfully. That's fair. Joy continues. And sometimes the public reaction isn't about being offended. It's about feeling disconnected. Oscar listens carefully. Joy finishes her thought. People want to feel like the people speaking to them understand their lives. The room grows quiet again. Oscar answers calmly. I think that's something everyone in public life should remember. A few audience members clap. Whoopi smiles. That's a good place to land. The audience applauds louder this time. Alyssa Farah Griffin looks toward Oscar. Before we move on, I just want to say this was actually a really thoughtful discussion. Sunny nods. It was. Joy smirks. Well, we do that sometimes. The audience laughs again. Oscar laughs too. I'm glad I survived it. Whoopi points toward him. You did more than survive it. More laughter from the audience. Whoopi glances toward the cameras. You know what's funny? Somewhere out there right now, people are already clipping this conversation. The audience erupts with knowing laughter and applause. Joy shakes her head. Oh, you know they are. Sunny adds jokingly. The internet is probably arguing about it already. Oscar smiles. That wouldn't surprise me. The segment starts to wrap up, but the atmosphere in the studio feels like something memorable just happened. The audience can sense it. Whoopi turns to Oscar. Well, we do appreciate you coming on and actually having the conversation. Oscar nods. Thank you for having me. Joy adds with a grin. And for not running off stage. The audience laughs again. Oscar shakes his head. No chance. The applause builds as the hosts begin transitioning toward the end of the segment. But even as the conversation wraps, the reaction in the room feels unusually strong. Audience members are still clapping, some standing slightly as they cheer. Whoopi smiles toward the crowd. All right. The applause slowly fades. Thank you to Oscar Isaac for joining us today. The audience applauds again as Oscar gives a small wave. But once the show moves into a commercial break, the moment doesn't just disappear. Backstage, according to people who were in the studio that day, the mood wasn't tense at all. In fact, several audience members later said the hosts and Oscar continued chatting casually once the cameras stopped rolling. Some people who attended the taping said Joy even joked with him off camera about how serious the conversation got. Within an hour of the episode airing, clips from the discussion started circulating online. Viewers immediately began debating the exchange between Oscar Isaac and Joy Behar. Some people praised Oscar for staying calm and thoughtful during the conversation. Others agreed with Joy's perspective that celebrities sometimes underestimate how their public statements affect everyday viewers. Social media quickly filled with comments analyzing specific moments from the segment. Some users highlighted the moment when Oscar said, "Silence also says something." Others focused on Joy's response about celebrities being disconnected from everyday struggles. Short clips from the debate spread across multiple platforms, with viewers replaying the back and forth between the two again and again. Some viewers called it one of the most genuine conversations the show had aired in a long time. Others said it perfectly captured the kind of debate people are having across the country. And of course, plenty of viewers simply said they enjoyed watching two strong personalities disagree without it turning into shouting. Even entertainment commentators started discussing the moment later that day. Several outlets pointed out how unusual it was for a celebrity guest to engage in such a long, serious discussion on a daytime talk show. But perhaps the most interesting reaction came from viewers who said the conversation actually felt real. Not scripted, not rehearsed, just a guest and a host debating an issue that clearly matters to both of them. By the evening, the clip had already gained hundreds of thousands of views online, and people were still arguing in the comments. Some saying Joy pushed too hard, others saying Oscar handled the conversation perfectly. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. It was compelling television, the kind of unscripted moment that keeps audiences watching. And moments like that are exactly why people tune into shows like this. Now we want to hear from you. What did you think about the exchange between Oscar Isaac and Joy Behar? Do you agree with Joy that celebrities should be more careful when speaking about social issues? Or do you agree with Oscar that everyone has the right to use their voice and share their perspective? Share your opinion in the comments. And make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories and behind-the-scenes moments from the world of television.